Alright, boys, so before we get into anything to actually do with this video, I gotta thank the crowd. We finally have hit the century point. That's right, we're at 100 subs. It feels pretty good, not gonna lie. It feels fucking great. I don't know if I'm gonna actually do anything to celebrate it because I really don't know what I would do. So if y'all have any ideas for something maybe you'd like to see as a way for me to commemorate this, then shoot them out in the comments. I can think is I'll probably do one of them. I have a couple ideas. Like I could do, I don't know, I could do like a team building session or something again, where I just for an hour I just try to build in new teams and figure out, all right, just experiment with some mods maybe I don't use very often. Maybe, I've got a whole bunch of my old teams here from, previous metas. We used to have Dramp up. There was a time where Leafeon was maybe perceived as half viable. Yeah, we had Rhydon, of course, at the very beginning. What else? Berserker was once pretty, okay. I was once convinced Silvally flying was viable. It was a crazy time. And so maybe I could go over just some, lesser used Pokemon, or even just build with some, standard bullshit. But yeah, if y'all have any ideas, feel free to let me know, and we'll see what happens out of it. But today I finally decided, you know what, maybe now is the time we go over the Silvallies in NU, and which ones I view to be at least usable. Now, there's an argument you can make for pretty much most of the Silvallies, that they are, at least usable. And I've definitely left off some ones that you could argue, and because of it, I'll add... The only other one that I would personally argue is, super, possibly to be seen right now is normal, because I do know some people's they're not too low on Silvally normal, so I'll throw it on at the end. But I broke it up into really good, the good ones, and then the less good. That's not to say that these are bad at all. Ghost, water, and ground, and even fire to a lesser extent, even though habit is about equal to these. I think they're all pretty easy to justify on teams. I just think these top three are by far the easiest to justify usage. And even despite me being pretty low on Silvally Dragon, at least comparatively to where it is ranked currently on the VR, as we can quickly over here, where is it right now? Yeah, it's up in A+. That probably shouldn't be the case, but I still do view it at least as the second best. Poison, a pretty, not that sizable of a step down, but definitely noticeably worse than these two. And then I think you could argue Ghost to be one of the better ones. I don't know. In my eyes, it's still really hard to justify, but let's get into this. I'm gonna just go over what each Silvally does and why it's where it is in the meta. And as we get to the lesser good ones, especially grass, normal, and these, it's pretty easy to justify why they're not as good. But I'll still try to at least talk about the positives with them more, because I think it's nicer to hear why you would want to use one than rather why you wouldn't want to. I always feel like it's a lot more fun to team build with stuff if you at least know why it's good. I think it's generally easier to rationalize why something's bad. And as a result, it's just a lot more fun to be told, hey, if you do try to use this Pokemon, here's what it's good at doing. Here's how you can make the most out of it. So let's start with Silvally Dark. And these two I have talked about a fair bit, so I might not go as in-depth as I probably should with the common ones. But I think it's really easy to see why Silvally Dark's super good right now. Fortunately, I do have the VR open right now. This wasn't intentional, but if we look at the common Pokemon, right? So Ghost, 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 Ghost. Where's another? I know there's another here somewhere. Oh, I know there's a sneaky little ghost fucker somewhere. Here, Ghost. There's a lot of really good ghost types in NU. And fortunately for Silvally Dark, a lot of them are either slower than it, or just don't threaten. Oh, here was the other one. I just missed Ghost. But yeah, so a lot of them are slower than it, or they just don't OHKO with their other Specs Decidueye does. But the big thing is that NU's ability to switch into ghost types isn't the best. You have some immunities, and you have a couple resists, you got Persian, Silvally Dark, of course. Your Liepard does not count as a resist, and you have where's the other one? Yeah, Skuntank. And so because there's just such a small amount of Pokemon that can take these strong ghost-type attacks from a lot of, these strong breakers like Specs Decidueye, Specs Rotom, Life Orb, Gourgeist Small. if you can resist Ghost or are immune to Ghost, in the case of like Kanga and Miltank, you're going to be a pretty good option in the tier. And so not only is Silvally Dart good for that, but it's also just such a scary offensive Pokemon. So the common sets you're going to see with this are pretty much always going to be like offensively oriented. I'm even going to type them in the moves that, or the order that you'll see moves. So obviously the big thing is obviously it's multi-attack. There aren't even a lot of good like dark resists, you know? Scyfangs makes Croak not really a good switch in. Girder's not really seen. Your most consistent switch-ins to Silvally Dark really are going to be like Fizdef Clef. Alolan Persian's really good. I guess Alchemy as well if it's Fizdef. Weezing could be kind of annoying to break through. Like, some generic physical walls are just going to be annoying because how strong multi-attack is. Unless they have recovery, you're probably not switching it more than once, especially if you have like a spike up or something. Yeah, so like, this thing is always going offensive. I don't think I've ever seen this run a defensive set. And I think the set most people would probably point out to is the best one. This is going to be like just the standard SD3 attacks with Flame Charge. Late game, this can get out of hand really easily. I'm even just going to close the staff room just so that's not constantly lighting up. But I think this is the set that most people are going to be looking at because it's so good at cleaning late game because there are so few Pokemon that can actually take it on. And there's even some room for customization. I like Ironhead on here sometimes if my team's weak to Fairy types. When I say weak to Fairy types, I mostly mean like, does it need an extra way to pressure them? So Ironhead's cool to see. You can also see U-Turn. Just because SD U-Turn is always really good for weakening maybe some like generic Pokemon that you don't want to stay in the multi. You know, there could be like some physical walls that can just cripple you. And maybe you want to just U-Turn outwards instead. Like one I think of maybe is like Gallarfisk. If it's at a point in the game where you're not trying to go for game yet, maybe just when you turn out. Or even if something like a Clefairy comes out to wall you. And that's especially it's especially frequent if you're running Scyfangs over Ironhead. You don't want to stay in and just die to 2 Moonblasts. It's not really good. You also don't want to give up momentum to Clefairy potentially. And so U-Turn's just really nice. It also is its Silvally Dark's best way of chipping Persian, and not too many run Rocky Helmet at this point, so you're generally not being punished. Another set that we have seen more of recently, I would argue, is the Defog variant. And there are a couple ways that this set manifests itself. It's usually just going to be like this, though. My favorite variant is to put Sword Stance here, though. I think this set it just compresses so much utility between being able to pressure teams late game. It's still a good pivot. Defog really on this last slot is mostly just going to be if you like, it's really just there for like the emergency defog button. I see this set a lot on like Spike Stack, and it's mostly just there so that in case you need to like not lose the Hazard War, you have that emergency button, and it's really nice. Silvally Dark is still, you know, notoriously good at forcing switches, and so it's not that hard to get a free chance to defog. A lot of time people will be trying to play around your multi-attack or even just use Swords Dancing. And so I really like this set. Hoenn confirmed. Apparently way back when we were first starting up analyses, he actually like originally suggested Defog Silvally Dark, and at the time I was like, nah, because I hadn't seen it enough. And while in theory I'm sure it was fine at the time, it's just like, I like to see sets prove themselves, and I think in UPL, and just more recent ladder play, this set really has proven itself. And now we move on to Silvally Dragon. Now, obviously, in recent times, I have been harping against this mon a little bit more, because I do think it is... I put it on my teams, and I'm like, oh yeah, on paper, this mon's really good, because Dragon... So, let's just do this. There's only one set that this thing really ever runs, and it's this. You can change up this, like, there are some more niche sets that it can run, but this is pretty much what you always see. And on paper, it's really good. Dragon's a pretty nice defensive typing. Gives you really, you know, resist water, fire, grass. I mean, that's really nice. Some offense teams can struggle with finding that fire resist, and so Rapidash can at times maybe pose a bit of a threat. Just between Flare Blitz, you know, very fast Flare Blitz and its coverage. And so having this mon be able to pretty much just handle it whenever, switch into those attacks, is really nice. And Dragon plus Steel is pretty good. Obviously, other Steel types wall you, but otherwise, you pretty much hit everything neutrally. And even then, Flame Charge, it's passable enough to get through them. You know, like if something like Galarfisk or Pharisee takes too much chip, they're not going to be checking you very consistently, especially if it's +2 Flame Charge. I mean, shit, that's doing probably around 40 at least to Galarfisk. Some do run a little bit more physical defense than others, but there's nothing unmanageable. And I think this is just so good on offense because it offers that nice blend of offense and defense. Now, in terms of other sets, again, there's just so little deviating from this. I'll put it over here real quick just to preserve the nice little organization I got going on. But where are you? Oh god, help. I have seen this occasionally, and it's really just if you want to drop Dracos on the opposing team. Last slot, honestly, I couldn't tell you. Flash cannon, probably though. Just hit Clef. Like, I have seen stuff like this very occasionally. You could probably even go multi-attack still over workup. And really the only appeal to this set is that it can catch the traditional, like, just blanket physical walls a little bit more off guard. So it's like a lure set of sorts. Again, it just doesn't have as much potential because you are walled, I would say, by a lot more stuff. This set's a lot easier to handle, especially because your stab attack actually has drawbacks, you know? While Draco is a little bit stronger than multi-attack, one, it can miss, so that just sucks, and two, you're forced out after using it. Whereas with this attack's still strong as hell, and you're not forced out after using it, so you just keep launching off those hits. It just is so much easier to get a lot of run out of it. And now I'm also wondering why this says Silvally Dragon here, but this just says Silvally. That's a weird inconsistency. It was on a meme-ish team of sorts, but I did run like Defog T-Wave on this at one point, mostly just to get run out of defensive typing. It was okay, but nothing special. And then we get Silvally Poison. Now, Silvally Poison's weird because it has a really hard time fitting on every move at once, but I still think that it can get enough of the moves it needs on its set to pose enough of a problem to do it at once. So in my eyes right now, I actually think Parting Shot's not the best on it because I really think you want to make use of this thing's coverage. And so what I like running a lot is this. Some like form of this set. Psychic Fangs if you want to hit Croak a little bit harder though. But I really like how this configuration works. It gives you the matchup you probably want against most of the opposing hazard setters. So you've got the super effective hit for like all the ground types here. And in this right there, just makes you a better answer to Croak. And then the last EVs, they really can just go into Fizdef or Spadef. I think it's mostly just team dependent. I think Spadef's usually a little bit better because it lets you handle Croak a little bit more efficiently, but if you maybe really need this to emergency check other valleys and you just really want to take those stray multis a little bit better, then sure, put in Fizdef. But I would argue Nasty Block Croak, and even taking Decidueye Leaf Storm better. I think it makes the Spadef more useful. But I do like this configuration the most. You can go Flamethrower here. It helps hit Pharisee a little bit harder, and it still hits, you know, Croak a little bit harder than it normally would because of Dry Skin. But I believe Psychic Fangs is just overall going to offer you a little bit more. Flamethrower's pool of targets isn't very high. Like, Multi-Attack and Flamethrower have a lot of overlap. It hits, like, again, it hits, like, Ferroseed, I guess Gourgeist a little harder too. But I like Psychic Fangs. I don't think you need Flamethrower to still handle a lot of the stuff that it would hit. Plus, Ferroseed's not very hard to check. Now, if you didn't need this for Defog and you just wanted it as a standalone, maybe like utility poison type, I could see going Parting Shot last. But I feel like a big reason you use Silvally Poison is because the coverage, the random coverage it has, and its tendency to draw in the common hazard setters. I don't know, I just like Defog as a result. But I do see like using that logic to justify Parting Shot too. So say you draw into Sandaconda, you surf it, and then you could just safely Parting Shot into maybe a Decidueye. I do think that's justifiable. In terms of other sets, it doesn't. Silvally Poison we were saying Silvally Dragon doesn't deviate. This mon really doesn't deviate. I have seen one other set, and I'm going back to an old live that we did, and it was workup, multi, I want to say it was Surf here, and then like Shadow Ball. So you've got, I believe it was max speed. I want to say you had 32 attack, because I believe that made it so +1 multi-attack got an Oko somewhere. Or it was you had 224 special attack, so that +1 Surf got you a 2-hit KOs somewhere. I don't remember. Or maybe it was Shadow Ball to 2-hit KO Kofa. I don't remember, but something like that. I think this set's at least cool, but I don't know if it's much beyond cool, you know? It's just... Unstabbed Surf does not hit very hard. And so I feel this Pokemon's a little bit harder to get as much run out of as you'd like it to when you deviate from utility sets and go offensive, but it's still really fun. I think it's not the worst thing to try to support. Most of it's just you need to try to get a way to, like, get by Gallarfisk, Pharaoh Seed, like Steel types in general. And you can pressure those pretty easily with something like a Decidueye. So I don't think it's the hardest thing ever to support. It's just a little bit cumbersome. So these are the 3 big Silvallies, and again, we're gonna go Ghost now because I think going Ghost, isn't that Danny Phantom related or something? I don't know. But I want to talk about Silvally Ghost now because I think this Pokemon has the potential to be viewed more in a brighter light. I'm just not very high on it at the moment because I feel it's very hard to justify over the other Ghost types. They just, I feel, offer a little bit more. And taking up the Silvally slot can feel a little bit not desirable at times. This mod has a really good niche on Spike Stack, just because you threaten a lot of the defoggers really reliably. You spin block. It's nice there, but like, it's Silvally Dark's walled by Alolan Persian, but at least it doesn't just die to foul play. This mod dies to foul play, and so it kind of just sucks. You know, with Alolan Persian being so prominent right now, it is a lot harder to use Silvally Ghost. It still does do a lot of things Silvally Dark does, though, because Ghost and Dark have very similar offensive coverage in terms of what they're resisted by and what they hit super effectively. And so you still hit stuff like the Kofa, you still threaten opposing Ghost types. You still, you know, are good for weakening physical walls. It's just there's a few more obstacles. In particular, the main issue I think that this mod has is that there are immunities to Ghost as opposed to just resistances to Dark. And so this mod doesn't like Miltank being very prominent. It doesn't like Kenga being one of the best wall breakers in the tier. I still like this set though. That's an Abomasnow. I don't like that set. No. Where's our Silvally? Here we go. Yeah, baby. I still like this set. Again, this idea of offering a lot of utility between U-turn and then just the late game potential with Swords Dance plus Flame Charge. It's very weird. This Pokemon just doesn't make very good use of any of the coverage options that Silvallies get, you know? If Incineroar were in the tier, like Rock Slide would be really good coverage. I know I've heard people talk about Substitute on this, and that does turn Miltank into just setup fodder. And maybe there's a point at which maybe +6 Flame Charge is a 2-hit KO versus Spadef Sap Super Miltank. Which, you know, that kind of set does sound pretty interesting. So maybe there's potential there. I'll put in the builders, so easy reference. So maybe something like this has a bit more potential. But I don't love losing out on U-turn, and you still don't break Alolan Persian. And I feel like you'd prefer having U-turn, so you can at least chip Alolan Persian pretty hard. Let's go to Silvally Water now. This is a Pokemon that has fallen out of grace. It was super good back in, like, April. I think that was when people really were picking up on it, because at the time, there weren't a lot of common Pokemon that resisted water. I think maybe we were just getting Eldegoss then, but, like, we were just realizing how few options for bulky water types we had. And so we looked to the Silvallies because of the buffs, and we realized, hey, this could be really cool offensively, and still offer defensive utility. So you saw defensive sets, a lot of Swords Dance was running around, and now I really don't know what this Pokemon's supposed to do. I mean, Wishy-Washy and Lantern even just eclipse it as a defensive water type, and just Swords Dance Silvally Water's not that good. I feel like maybe you could still run it with something like a Decidueye or a Gourgeist, something that can take advantage of all the Pokemon that it draws in. But it feels a little weird. The set that I've been using is not a new set by any means, but it's this. It's just some like offensive defog pivot. I really like how you still have the strong multi. You have Psychic Fang so that you can like maybe lure in Croak and then take it out there. And in U-turn is really cool because, so let's see what Pokemon we have that commonly want to switch into this. You've got maybe Decidueye tries to come in, but you got like a lot of grass types. And so it's really easy to pair this with something like, honestly, your own Decidueye. Or something like a Rapidash. Really just anything that beats up on grass types. Like, this mon is bringing them in. That's why I think Swords Dance probably still has some application on this Pokemon. I just feel like Defog is generally... I view this Pokemon more as like an emergency Glumon at this point, where you want the defensive utility a water type would give you. And like it's where you want Wishy-Washy, but you need Defog. And maybe even just a little bit more of an offensive presence. Wishy-Washy is really strong, but hey. There comes a point in which you just can't compete with this multi-attack. Oh boy, but that's pretty much Silvally Water. Workup sets probably exist. But like Silvally Fire, I think they probably struggle with coverage, you know, deciding what you want. Swords Dance again, I think is fine, but let's go to a more interesting one. Silvally Ground, and there's really not a lot I can say about this Pokemon. You run this set. Silvally Ground is cool because, like Silvally Water, it's really good at drawing in the grass types and water types even. And so it synergizes really well with common wall breakers. The main issue is that like Wheezing exists, and I really don't know what you're supposed to do about it. Your move to hit it is Rock Slide, and you need Rock Slide. You can't drop it for another move because then you get walled by like Rotom Fan. And do you really want to be walled by a fucking Office Appliance? I didn't think so. So, I don't know. This mon's just so hard to actually get run out of, but it is really fun. We did the live with it recently. And because it's a ground type, it always offers the invaluable Volt immunity. And again, just the synergy with good breakers is nice too. Having Swords Dance U-turns to hit stuff like Eldegoss is really cool. But beyond this set, I really don't think there's a whole lot that this can run. Ground is a really good offensive typing though, and I do know, I've noticed a lot of people are very unwilling to put ground immunities on teams. They just see, they put a resist and then like a neutral switch in, and they're like, yep, I'm fine. And I'm just like, okay, well, at least I know I get to click multi-attack, and every time you have to take it. That is the one benefit. And admittedly, in NU, sometimes it can be hard to fit a ground immunity on a team. There are a lot. But it can still sometimes be a little bit difficult to fit, like to find the one. And sometimes it is just easier to put, okay, resist, and then other Pokemon that can take ground move if necessary. But I think that is why Silvally Ground has at least maintained some semblance of a niche. Now we're getting into a bit more wild territory, because Silvally Fire is a weird mon. It was really good back when we had no other fire type that was viable. And Rapidash came down and it was still kind of viable, but as the meta progressed, I think people just realized this mon's not very good. In terms of sets, I run like fully special, but I think there's lots of relevancy to running a set like this. I think this gets you your best coverage overall, because I think you really want Grass Pledge just so you're not walled by like Lantern, and it overall just has pretty similar coverage to what you'd run Surf for. I think these three moves are only leaving you walled by Silvally Dragon, if I'm thinking correctly. It's not a very inspiring Pokemon, but I do think this set works. Swords Dance probably still works fine enough, but I feel like at this point you have to run U-turn. I just think there's too much stuff that's common that can force this mon out very easily. And I still don't really love the idea of running this mon. If you want an offensive physical fire type, I think Rapidash is a little bit better still, just because it can hold boots. If you could fit the hazard control with it, and I think U-turn's probably very fine to run this as a physical pivot. But I like this set the most. This is the one that I had the most success with. Like, there's just really not much to say. It has good coverage. It can break defensive cores pretty well. It's just kind of awkward to pilot. It's a weird mod. And these two are like really weird because so Silvally Grass I haven't used in a really long time, but I imagine it still just runs like, I don't know, something like this. I don't know, something like Silvally Water but a grass type. So you resist ground now as opposed to being neutral to it, at the cost of having a more easily walled multi-attack. You could probably run a defensive EV spread on this too, a la the Silvally Poison that we were running earlier. And you still do sorta check Decidui even. This time you still switch into the Leaf Storm, so that's cool. It just kind of sucks that you invited flying types for free. And in normal Silvally, this is a mon that I haven't seen much recently. Back when it was getting any modicum of hype, if I'm remembering correctly, it was for like, may not be Silk Scarf that we were running, but I think a lot of people did kinda like SD on it with like this sort of set. I think we also saw like Choice Scarf get used a little bit. These sets are probably still fine. But again, we're talking like fringe viable at this point. I think generally you're better off running Kanga, but this one having that like fast boom and U-turn is still pretty cool. I was talking with the friend recently, and he was saying maybe Choice Band could be good. Maybe? I don't know. I still feel like Kanga at that point, but Bandit Explosion, that's very relevant. It's also got U-turn, which Kanga does not. Multi-attacks also drawback. You know what? Again, maybe Choice Band Silvally normal is the wave. That's gonna be it from this video. Again, I gotta thank the fans. We're trying to go somewhere. That's all I can really say. We're trying to go somewhere. We got 100 now. I mean, again, by the end of summer originally I just wanted 50, and then we hit 100, and it's not even the end of August yet. That's crazy. Actually insane. So at the end of the year, I don't know where we'll be at, but at the very least, y'all are carrying this channel. You're interacting with it. You're liking. You're subscribing. You're commenting. Some of you are commenting, and if you're not commenting, I don't know why you aren't. Comment, please. I need to see what y'all want to say, so I know how to keep improving. I know what y'all, so I know that what y'all want is maybe what I'm posting, or maybe it's something else. And if it's something else, then I'll post it. Also, I just want to again look at this team. Like, this was what I was running with the very beginning of the gen, man. I was so convinced that this Pokemon could be good. I was so convinced, and I was so wrong. Anyhow, that's gonna be it from me here. I'll see y'all next time. I don't know what I'm gonna record next. Maybe a live. Until then, peace.